Okay, I'm not too sure how good this video will come out, but this is the rudder push rod, and I'm just simulating this because I don't have a plane to build. Um, Now, you see the little balsa piece in here. Very, very important, because without it, you can just push down this way, and your rudder will go over, and you wasted time putting push rods in. Now that horn's in a position, so when it's in full right turn, it's right touching the wood where your push rod is coming out with the obviously the Teflon tubing comes all the way to the edge of that wood. It's very important that you have that piece of wood in there, and it's just balsa, and believe me, it doesn't weigh enough to worry about. Find some really light balsa. It's less than 32nd of an inch thick, and then I just do a 90 down, and then I just put a little drop of CA on the bottom. Now here's the magnets. I start from the rear, and that's how I put my wire in, is from the rear and then forward toward the servo tray. Again, this is just simulation. I don't have any to build. So you can see these magnets, and they're coming along. And pretty much that, the rudder's a straight shot right on the side. The magnets toward the rear were kind of going down a little because they're trying to pull between the elevator and the rudder magnet. Make sure when you do your push rods that you do the rudder push rod first, and when the Teflon is dry, the glue is dry, pull the wire out. Do not try and do your elevator push rod with the rudder push rod still in place, or you will just get pissed. Believe me, I'm a king at push rods. That's a big, big mistake. Okay, so you can see we're over past the wing here. I'm going to go around to the front. And now we're at the front. And you can see, and I'll try to show this so you can see the light's pretty bad in here. But the magnets are about an inch apart from each other. The other thing is get your servo tray in as low as you can. That's real important. Make sure your servo tray is low. You want the wire to come through the horn from the bottom side up. And a lot of people are telling me, oh, the horns look so high. Actually, when you look at them from the bottom side up, the horns are not that high. And if you use push rods, make sure, or try to make sure that your biggest, use the big servo. I think they're 6100s on the rudder. On this plane, it's a little messed up, but it flies fine. But I recommend putting a bigger, higher torque servo for your rudder. That'll keep it from trying to torque your servo out and make it pull over. And then, this thing kind of sucks. But, alright. The other thing is now the elevator push rod is going to be on the left side. And I do it completely on the side, not on the bottom. Because your horn is offset on the tail, or you can make it that way. The way Roland makes the horns, they always come out. This is looking from the front, it would be the left, and then this is looking from it from the rear. The horn is off to the right side. So it's very important when you do your push rods to leave the Teflon long, like have it hang out 3 or 4 inches past the glue point. And always keep in mind, keep your radio gear out of the airplane. I mean all of it. All you want in here is the servo tray itself. Put your servo tray in, see where your horns are, make a mark on the fuse, and then always run your glue from the tail end of the plane to the nose. Always. Period. No matter what. That's the way you do it. Otherwise, it'll bleed out into your rudder. And that's something that you don't need to deal with. The other thing is, when you go to do your elevator push rod, you get a mark of the horn on your boom there out the pylon, and then glue that Teflon in place there, And then after it's glued good, then you can cut the Teflon off and you'll be fine. The Teflon I use, my elevator push rod, I never take it out, ever. That's why I like to do it, well, I do it last, because if I left it in and tried to do the rudder, it just messes thing up, one wire at a time. The rudder you can pull in and out easy, it's not an issue. But it's very important to get the elevation of that push rod the same as the hole in the horn. It's got to be right on. Also, you got to measure from center of the hole to your tail, and then go from center of your servo to center of the hole. You need to match it on the servo end. So, and then what you can do is take a drill, and the push rods that I use, they're rigid. You can cut a piece off of it because they're way too long too, about 4 inches, and you can put it in a battery powered drill, and you can drill right through your horns for your servo arms, and you can drill through them. As far as the tail and the rudder go, I don't do anything to the tail or rudder horns. I like the long rudder horn, and I like that balsa piece out there. And so I just fill that, I put it all together. I put a little drop of thin CA on that push rod, and then, excuse me, I put a little bit more from the top side too on the horn, and then with this disconnected off of my servo, and I'll move it around. And that CA, I've been flying these planes for years, and I've maybe once had one come loose, and the same with the elevator, it just really doesn't have it. But every time you go to a flight, another contest, or you break your plane out, always check that stuff. It's not that hard. It's like, charge your battery, check things. It's not it's easy to do. But yeah, the push rods, they're rigid, man. When you're done, your rudder's not going to go or bend, and your launch is going to be better. Obviously, your plane's going to be a little bit heavier. Not a lot, not as much as they were. We use 024 piano wire, straight. It comes in a tube, straight tube. And then we use a Rick Walbro, whatever it is, Teflon tubing, and it works really good. And the Walbro tubing, you can stretch it. Whatever the wire length is, if you put your tubing next to it, you can mark it 16 inches shorter about. You might want to try this on a couple before you take my word for it, and then you can stretch it and then put your push rod in. It's very important that the wire and the tubing are not, it's free moving, but it needs to be non-sloppy too. So I think most of the people that have any experience know what I'm saying. Otherwise, you're wasting your time putting your push rods in, because they ain't going to do nothing if they're sloppy in there. So it's real important that they're glued all the way. Now what I do is I glue it, of course the wing's on, but all you guys that have concept know the wing plug is here. So when the wing is off, I run the glue, and I keep my eye on this spot from the inside of the fuse, and I run thin. I use Zap. I really like Zap because it's really thin, and I'll drip it in, and I'll watch in here. And again, my wire will be hanging way out past the nose, with the Teflon probably almost that long. And when I see it get to here, what I do is I put a little kicker on there, drip kicker on toward the nose, right where the wing plug goes. And when the CA hits it, yeah, it does. It runs just a little bit more, but not very much, and it'll stop the glue from filling your nose of your plane. So at that point, what I do is I put my servos in, and I make Z-bends up on the horns, put my hole in, and then install the wire, and cut my Teflon the length I need it, and I leave the back of the wires long. So then I get that in there, and I get my servos centered, and then what I do is I go from the plug, and you can go from the servo, and you could use medium CA for this, and then just kind of hold the Teflon against the side of the fuse, and then tip your plane down, and you can watch it. And you can watch it through the plug, you can watch it there, and you can go both directions if you don't want to try to do it all one way. And keep in mind that's in front of the CG too, so that its weight that medium CA is just fine. So that's how I do that. Then once everything's in on the front, servos are centered, you tape I tape my rudder with tape. You know how you get them from rolling? That's what you want to do. You want to tape it. Then you want to go down here and you want your balsa block already glued. You want your Teflon glued on it, and obviously you want to cut it that length, and then make a mark where that hole is, and then bend a 90 down. It's very important that you hold the wire with real stiff vice grips or something at the point where you make your bend, so it doesn't twist the wire when you're bending it. Otherwise your wire might end up going like this or like that, you know. It might be in a twist. So make sure you do that. You know, when people want push rods, the way to get them, actually, if you're doing one plane, 3 wires is what you want in case you make a mistake, because sometimes they're hard to get another set. Same thing on the elevator. Now the elevator is really, really important to get right. What happens is the length of the horns between the servo and the elevator horn, which I like, they're fine, but you need to make sure that bend is on the money. Anyway, that's a short video, and I'll try to take some pictures up front and in the back that look a little better than this video. But for you guys that wanted to see it, that's what it is. Thanks.